The house had been abandoned for years, or so I thought. Daniel Whitmore had always loved solitude. As a writer, he thrived in quiet places, away from distractions. So when he found the old Victorian house on the outskirts of town, a perfect, eerie retreat with just the right amount of character, he signed the lease without hesitation. The house had been vacant for years, the landlord told him. People don't stay long, the old man had muttered, shuffling through the paperwork. Says the house gets lonely. Daniel had chuckled at that. A lonely house? Please. By the time he arrived, the sky was bruised with twilight, and the house stood tall against the horizon, its once white paint peeling, its windows dark and hollow. It did have a presence, he admitted. A certain weight to it, as if the walls had absorbed 1,000 secrets over the years. The key turned in the lock with surprising ease, and as he stepped inside, a sharp, musty scent filled his lungs. The wooden floors creaked beneath his feet, and dust swirled in the dim glow of his flashlight. Something about the air felt thick. Daniel shrugged off the feeling. Just an old house settling. That first night, he wrote well past midnight. The silence was perfect. No honking cars, no noisy neighbors, just him, his thoughts, and the occasional whisper of the wind against the windows. But as he closed his laptop and stretched, he noticed something strange. The door to the hallway was open. He was sure he had shut it. Frowning, he walked over and closed it again, shaking his head at himself. You're tired. It's nothing. But deep down, something felt off. Something waited. The next morning, Daniel woke to the smell of coffee. Which would have been comforting, if he had made any. He sat up quickly, his heart hammering. The air was thick with the rich, unmistakable aroma of freshly brewed coffee. But the house was empty. He grabbed the nearest thing he could find, a flashlight from his bedside table, and crept toward the kitchen. The coffee pot sat untouched. No mug, no sign of anyone. The scent faded, like it had never been there at all. Daniel exhaled, running a hand through his hair. His logical brain fought to explain it. Maybe a scent from the old wood, a lingering smell from whoever lived here last? But the unease lingered. By nightfall, the silence no longer felt peaceful. It felt too silent, as if the house was holding its breath. Then the whispering started. Soft at first, like wind slipping through cracks. Then clearer. Words. Daniel sat frozen at his desk, his fingers hovering over his keyboard, listening. The whispers moved. From the hallway, to the stairs, to just outside his door. He turned slowly. The door was open again. Daniel refused to be scared by shadows and sounds. He was a writer, not a child. So the next morning, he did what any rational person would do, he explored the house. The attic was small, packed with old trunks and forgotten relics. Dust coated everything like a thick layer of history. But one object stood out, a tattered leather-bound book tucked inside an open chest. A diary. He opened it, expecting old grocery lists or mundane thoughts. But the first entry made his stomach twist. If you are reading this, it means the house has chosen you. Daniel's grip tightened. He turned the pages, his pulse quickening. It started with whispers, then the doors, the small things, like coffee brewing when no one was there. His mouth went dry. Then it got worse. The house isn't empty. It never was. It waits. It watches. It learns. A creak behind him made him snap the book shut. The attic door had closed on its own. That night, Daniel locked every door, every window, left every light on. But at exactly 3:12 a.m., something knocked on his bedroom door. 3 slow, deliberate taps. His throat tightened. He reached for his phone, but it was dead. The clock on the wall had stopped. The air was suffocating, pressing against him. And then, his bedroom door creaked open. There was no one there. But the whispering filled the room. This time, he understood the words. You shouldn't have come. Daniel stumbled back, his heart pounding. The shadows in the corners stretched, shifting, moving. The house was alive, and it didn't want him there. He grabbed his keys and bolted. But just as he reached the front door, something cold brushed against his neck. And a voice, no louder than a breath, whispered. You can't leave now. You belong to the house. The next morning, Daniel's car was still parked outside. His laptop sat open, his last sentence unfinished. The house was silent again. Waiting. Because Daniel wasn't the first. And he wouldn't be the last. Some houses don't just have history. They have hunger.
Please like and subscribe.